homeless girl dragged a 200-pound single dad from a sinking car. What happened next shocked everyone. The car disappeared beneath the river's surface faster than anyone thought possible, metal screaming, glass exploding into the black water, headlights flickering like dying stars. People on the bridge froze, staring, phones shaking in their hands, while the cold swallowed everything. Everyone except one small figure who didn't hesitate, didn't calculate the risk, didn't stop to think that she herself had nowhere to sleep that night. She ran toward the edge, breath ripping from her chest, and jumped. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet heroes the world often ignores, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because people like this exist. Her name was Lena, though almost no one knew it. At 17, she had already learned how invisible a person could become. She slept wherever the night allowed, under overpasses, in abandoned stairwells, behind a closed bakery where the smell of bread lingered like a memory of a life she no longer had. The city moved around her like a river itself, fast and uncaring, and she had learned to keep moving with it to survive. Her clothes were thin, her shoes worn down to the point where the soles flapped when she walked, but her eyes were alert, always scanning, always ready. That night, the rain had been relentless. It soaked her hair, flattened it against her face, and turned the streets into mirrors reflecting red and white lights. Lena had been crossing the bridge on foot, heading nowhere in particular, just following the instinct to keep walking until exhaustion forced her to stop. She heard the crash before she saw it, a violent screech of tires, a dull impact, and then the sound that made her blood run cold, the hollow splash of a car breaking through the barrier and plunging into the river below. The bridge froze. A handful of drivers slammed on their brakes. Someone screamed. Someone else shouted into a phone. The river, swollen from days of rain, churned angrily beneath, swallowing the car in seconds. Lena's heart pounded so hard it felt like it might tear free of her chest. She ran to the railing and looked down, expecting nothing but darkness. Instead, she saw a hand slam against the window, faint but desperate, the silhouette of a man trapped inside. The man was Daniel, though Lena did not know his name then. He was 36. A single father who worked double shifts loading trucks to keep food on the table for his 8-year-old son. That night, he had been driving home exhausted, mind foggy with worry about Trent and school shoes and whether his boy would ever forgive him for working so much. The rain blurred his vision. The slick road betrayed him. In an instant, everything he was fighting for was sinking. Inside the car, panic fought with instinct. Water poured in, ice cold, stealing his breath, crushing his chest. He kicked, pushed, slammed, but the pressure was relentless. His body was strong from years of labor, nearly 200 pounds of muscle and bone, but strength meant nothing against water and metal. His thoughts fractured, flashing images of his son's face, the way he laughed when Daniel pretended to be a monster, the way he fell asleep clutching Daniel's shirt. Then the water reached his chin. Lena did not think of her own weight, her own hunger, her own fear. She dropped her backpack, climbed the railing, and jumped. The river hit her like a wall, knocking the air from her lungs, dragging her under. Cold burned through her skin, seized her muscles. For a split second, terror screamed at her to let go, to surface, to save herself. But she had already seen his hand. She kicked harder, forcing her body toward the sinking shape. The car rested at an angle, wedged against debris, bubbles roaring from every seam. Lena swam to the driver's side, her fingers slipping on the slick metal. The window was shattered but jagged, biting into her skin as she reached inside. She grabbed fabric, then skin, then his arm. Daniel's eyes were wide, unfocused, his movements slow and heavy as the water stole his strength. Getting him out was only the beginning. Dragging him was something else entirely. Lena wrapped both arms around his chest and kicked with everything she had. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. The river fought her, pulling them both downward, spinning them like discarded trash. More than once, her grip slipped, and panic flared that she would lose him, that his body would sink back into the dark and be gone forever. Somehow, impossibly, she broke the surface. She gasped, coughing water, hauling his weight behind her. Shouts echoed from the bridge now. Lights danced on the water. Lena focused on the concrete embankment ahead, scraping her knees raw as she fought the current. Inch by inch, she pulled him closer, until her hands found stone and her body collapsed forward, dragging Daniel onto land. She lay there shaking, rain and river water mixing with tears she didn't realize were falling. Daniel was unconscious, his chest barely moving. Lena pressed her ear to him, panic clawing at her throat when she couldn't hear anything. She slapped his chest, pressed down, doing what instinct and half-remembered lessons told her to do, refusing to stop even as her arms trembled with exhaustion. When Daniel finally coughed, water spilling from his mouth, Lena sagged back onto the wet concrete, her vision swimming. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. People ran toward them, faces paled, voices frantic. Someone wrapped a jacket around her shoulders, though she barely noticed. Her body was shutting down, shock creeping in, the cold winning. Daniel was lifted onto a stretcher, oxygen pressed to his face. As they carried him away, his eyes fluttered open for a moment, unfocused but alive. Lena stood back, arms wrapped around herself, suddenly very aware of her soaked clothes, her bare hands scrapped and bleeding, her place on the edge of everything. She expected nothing. She never expected anything. At the hospital, doctors worked through the night. Danielle survived, bruised and shaken but alive. The story spread fast, as stories like this sometimes do. News cameras replayed the footage captured by a dash cam on the bridge, the small figure diving into the river, the impossible rescue. Reporters called Lena a hero. They asked where she came from, where she lived, what school she went to. The truth stalled on her tongue. She had learned long ago that honesty did not always bring help. Daniel woke the next morning with a pounding head and a chest full of pain. But he was alive. When the nurse told him who had pulled him from the river, he stared at the ceiling, tears leaking from the corners of his eyes. He asked to see her. It took hours to find Lena, who had slipped away before dawn, back into the city that barely noticed her. When they finally brought her to his room, Lena stood awkwardly near the door, hands clenched, eyes downcast. Daniel looked at her like he was seeing something sacred. Gratitude flooded him so completely it hurt. He did not have words big enough for what she had done. All he could feel was the overwhelming knowledge that he would go home to his son because she had chosen to jump. The days that followed unraveled Lena's life in ways she never expected. Social workers asked questions. Doctors examined her injuries. A counselor listened as Lena spoke, haltingly at first, about her mother's death, her father's disappearance, the nights spent cold and afraid. For the first time in years, adults listened without judgment, without looking away. Daniel insisted on staying in touch. When he was discharged, he brought his son to meet the girl who had saved his life. The boy clung to his father's hand, eyes wide, staring at Lena like she was something out of a storybook. Lena felt something crack open inside her chest, something warm and painful and unfamiliar. Help came, not all at once, but steadily. A temporary shelter turned into a longer stay. School counselors helped Lena enroll in classes she had missed. Donations poured in after the story went viral, and while she was careful, wary of promises, she could not deny that doors were opening where there had once been walls. Daniel went back to work, but his priorities shifted. Every night when he tucked his son into bed, he remembered the river, the darkness, the hands that had pulled him back. He volunteered more. He spoke at events about paying attention, about the quiet people the world steps over every day. He made sure Lena knew she was not alone, not anymore. Months passed. Lena grew stronger, her cheeks filling out, her eyes softer. She learned to sleep without fear of being woken by police or rain. She learned to trust, slowly, cautiously. The memory of the river never left her, but it changed. It became proof that she was capable of more than survival, that her life had weight and meaning. And so, before this story ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that heroes don't always look the way we expect, please like this video, share it, and let the algorithm carry this message further than we ever can alone. Also, take a moment right now to comment below and tell us what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. On the anniversary of the accident, Daniel and his son stood on the bridge, flowers in hand, watching the river flow calmly beneath them. Lena stood beside them, taller now, steadier, her future no longer an empty question mark. The water moved on, indifferent as ever, but the lives it had nearly taken had changed forever. A homeless girl had jumped without thinking, and in doing so, she had not only saved a man's life, but reclaimed her own.